And speaking of going beyond enemy lines, here's what Turkish President Erdogan is doing. Here's where he is, at least technically. Erdogan traveled to Sochi today to meet Vladimir Putin. It's a Russian resort town on the Black Sea. There was a lot of speculation around this meeting. It wasn't clear when or where this meeting would happen. First, Putin was expected to visit Turkey, and that would have been huge. The Russian president meeting a NATO leader inside NATO territory. Maybe that's why the plan was dropped. But finally, they picked Sochi. Putin welcomed Erdogan with a handshake and a smile. Afterwards, they got down to business. The big issue was the Black Sea grain deal. Erdogan was pushing Russia to revive it, but today he had no luck. Putin said the deal cannot be revived unless his conditions are met. Listen to this.
As I have said more than once, we were simply forced to make this decision. Russia was forced to do it, as Western countries blocked and continue to block the grain deal in terms of ensuring access of Russian agricultural producers to world markets. Well, it can't be tolerated further.
Not surprising though, Russia's actions always suggested this would happen. Take a look at these pictures. They show the Ukrainian town of Odessa on fire. It was attacked by Russian drones on Sunday. At least 2 people were injured. Now, Odessa is a port town. Ukrainian grain is shipped from Odessa to the world. So why did Russia attack it? To send a message that their position will not change. So Putin's decision is not surprising, really. But one of his comments stood out. He said there is no shortage of food grains. There is only a distribution problem. Listen to this.
The termination of the grain deal did not affect the global food markets. I would like to emphasize this in particular. No matter what is said about this, grain prices continue to decline. There is no physical shortage of food. There are problems with its fair distribution, that's true. But this has nothing to do with the so-called grain deal.
Well, technically he's right. There is a distribution problem. But many people would say that the problem is Russia, that Putin's position is making a bad situation worse. Erdogan knew this would be the likely outcome today, but he pushed for it anyway. The Turkish president wants Ukraine to soften its stance, to strike a deal.
In this context, we prepared a package containing new suggestions in consultation with the United Nations. I think it's possible to get results with this new process. As Turkey, we believe that we will hopefully reach a solution that will meet expectations in a short time. Especially Ukraine needs to soften its approach on the point of being able to take mutual steps with Russia.
So the big headline is this: the Black Sea grain deal will not be revived. At least not today, which makes you wonder, why is this deal so important? Time for a quick recap. The Black Sea is located to the south of Ukraine. It is the only way to ship anything out of the country, out of Ukraine. But when Russia invaded, they blocked the Black Sea. They said all vessels were fair game, even commercial ones carrying food grains. This is when the United Nations and Turkey got together. They brokered a deal between Russia and Ukraine. And what did the deal say? That Ukraine could ship food grains from 3 ports. And in return, Russia got some concessions. They were allowed to sell food and fertilizers. In July 2023, this deal was up for renewal. Putin said, we won't do it. He said the West was not keeping its word, that Russian food exports faced a lot of restrictions. Which brings us to present day. Only 3 Ukrainian ships have left the Black Sea since July. All 3 without Russia's permission. If Moscow wants to, they can attack these ships. I'm sure all of this sounds complicated, but I bet you too have felt its impact. Wheat prices have increased 10% since July. Food inflation is rising globally. One of the reasons is the collapse of this deal. Just ask Erdogan, why do you think he's brokering this deal? It's certainly not because of compassion. Erdogan is doing it for political gains. Turkey's inflation was almost 60% in August. It was 47% the month before. To make matters worse, Erdogan thinks he's a financial genius. He doesn't believe in interest hikes. He thinks cutting interest rates will control inflation. Clearly, it's not working. But who will tell that to Erdogan? He needs this grain deal to cool prices down at home. If not, he needs a backup plan. And guess who has one? Vladimir Putin. He has presented a proposal to Erdogan, 1 million tons of Russian grain at discounted prices. Talk about a sweetener. Turkey gets the food grain and Russia gets Erdogan off their back. It's not clear if Ankara will accept this deal. But one thing is quite clear, Putin will keep leveraging food grains. He realizes it's the best way to put pressure on NATO. Having said that, it is a double-edged sword. So far, most of the developing world has refused to condemn Russia's war. Will they keep doing that when inflation hits double digits? When Russian rockets destroy Ukrainian grain? That's the risk for Putin. Meanwhile, China's map war is backfiring. This is about the map they released last week, what they call China's new standard map. It was issued by the government. We told you about it, about how in this map, China claims Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh and almost the entire South China Sea. The map was widely condemned. India, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam and the Philippines, all of them rejected China's claims. Now, one more country has been added to the list, and that country is Nepal. That's right, Nepal too is angry with China's new map, but not in the way you would imagine. You see, Nepal borders two countries, India and China. It has territorial disputes with both the countries, but it's not raising its disputes with China. This complaint is about Nepal's territorial claim against India and China's lack of support for it. Let me explain. In this map, China has marked 3 territories as Indian: Lipu Lake, Kalapani and Limpiyadura. China's map says these territories are part of India, and that's not sitting well with Kathmandu. So the Nepalese government has issued a statement, an appeal to the international community, along with an old map that they released in 2020. Nepal had issued this map, a political map, 3 years ago. It claimed 3 territories in it: Lipu Lake, Kalapani, Limpiyadura, as Nepalese territory. And their statement says, and I'm quoting, "The government unequivocally believes that this map must be respected by our neighbors as well as the international community." That's what Nepal is saying. In other words, they want China to follow this map. And Nepal is very serious about it. It wants to raise the issue diplomatically. The current Prime Minister of Nepal is called Pushp Kamal Dahal, more commonly known by his nickname Prachand. Now, Prachand will travel to China soon, and he's expected to discuss China's new map. Kathmandu's mayor was also supposed to go. His visit was supposed to begin this Thursday, but it's been called off. Again, due to the same map, the mayor will not go. He says he's cancelled the trip on quote-unquote moral grounds. Plus, there were protests. Outside China's embassy in Kathmandu, the student wing of a leading political party organized this protest. So this is a full-blown diplomatic issue now. What is China's position on this dispute? Well, Beijing leans towards New Delhi's stance here. It does not recognize Nepal's claims. In fact, Beijing calls Lipu Lake a trading post between China and India, no Nepal. And of course, New Delhi's position on this is well known. When Nepal released this political map in 2020, India called this move quote-unquote unilateral. It is unlikely that China did not see this exchange. They've known what's been going on. And yet, China chose to ignore Nepal's claims, which is why Kathmandu is upset. Its objections may not move the needle, though. That's where China stands at the moment. What about Nepal's border dispute with China? Will Prime Minister Prachand raise those too? We say don't count on it. Kathmandu is vocal about its issues with India, but when it comes to China, it takes a more cautious approach, even when there is proof of Chinese encroachment. The Nepal-China border is nearly 1,400 kilometers long. The boundary is demarcated not by barbed wire, but by a chain of pillars. Now, these pillars are several kilometers apart, and this makes identifying the border quite difficult. China, being China, takes advantage of this. In 2020, a report emerged. It said China has occupied 11 areas inside Nepal. That's around 33 hectares of Nepalese land. It's a lot for a small country. China rejected the report, and Nepal said it will solve all border issues diplomatically. Well, 3 years have passed. Has there been any movement? Has Kathmandu made any progress? It hasn't. A Nepalese newspaper recently reported about this. It said, there's been no forward movement. A senior government official was quoted, and this is what he said. Nepal and China have not carried out joint boundary work since 2011, so we don't know the actual status of the border in the north. In July last year, we decided to activate the bilateral mechanism to clear the boundary work, but not a single meeting has been held so far. So the question is, will Prime Minister Prachand speak up about this when he visits China later this month? China is hosting the Asian Games, Nepal is participating, and their Prime Minister is expected to join the delegation. Will he talk about China's border games or just keep harping on Indian land on Chinese maps? Pakistan's army chief had a busy weekend. He held a very important meeting with 100 people. They were not soldiers. They were not senior army officers, not even arms suppliers. These 100 people were businessmen. That's right. Pakistan's army chief is dropping the pretense. Pakistan's army is dropping the pretense. Army Chief Asim Munir has decided to get his hands dirty. His project? Fixing Pakistan's economy. This meeting took place in Lahore at the Corps Commander's house. The business community was represented by the LCCI, that's the Lahore Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You won't find pictures or videos of this meeting. It was held behind closed doors. So what exactly happened? The Lahore Chamber statement reveals some details. The businessmen had a set of demands, like reducing income taxes, delaying energy taxes to winter months, and controlling the value of Pakistan's national currency. General Asim Munir granted some of them. For example, he promised to tax forex dealers. This will reroute remittances from unofficial to official channels. He also promised to keep the exchange rate quote-unquote transparent. Now, just to be clear, Pakistan does have a civilian government. They also have a caretaker finance minister. Yet, who do the business leaders meet? The army chief. This latest meeting tells us two things. Number one, it shows how bad the situation is. Over the weekend, traders held a nationwide strike in Pakistan. Thousands of shops were shuttered. What were they protesting? Higher inflation, higher taxes, and the falling Pakistani rupee. Now, to give you some idea, Pakistan's latest inflation is around 27%. Food prices are up 40%. So the economic condition is really bad. People are already out on the streets protesting. If the outrage grows, it could mean more trouble. Which brings us to the second factor, the army's direct interest. Until now, General Munir was not focused on the economy. He was focused on Imran Khan. But now he's making a pivot. And frankly, he does not have an option. What if this public outrage drags on till the elections? What if it turns people towards Imran Khan? So Pakistan's economic crisis is also a strategic one for the army. Hence, General Asim Munir's interest. But does he have a plan? He did mention some details to the Lahore business community, like fighting the grey economy. What does that mean? What is the grey economy? It's the economy that operates outside government control. They don't pay taxes. General Asim Munir says this grey economy is 3 times bigger than Pakistan's official economy. I know it sounds dubious, but either way, the army wants to fight it, to bring the grey economy under the tax regime. He also proposed privatization of some public companies. He did not say which ones. And finally, he pitched for outside investments. He said countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE and China could bet on Pakistan. How much money is he expecting? General Asim Munir says, and listen to this, he says he's expecting up to $100 billion. That's billion with a B, 100 billion. And how much investment did Pakistan get last year? $1.3 billion. At this rate, just 76 years to go. The fact is, the army cannot solve Pakistan's problems. This is not warfare or strategy. And even then, you wouldn't trust the generals in Rawalpindi. This is an army that has lost every single war it has fought. The report card is a big zero, yet the same generals think they can turn the economy around. Clearly not fans of specialization. And it's not like the army chief has nothing on his plate. Last week, 9 soldiers were killed in a suicide blast. Today, a military helicopter crashed during training. 3 soldiers were killed. But what does General Asim Munir do? He meets business leaders to talk inflation. We can expect more such meetings and decisions in the coming months because Pakistan's elections have been pushed to 2024. Chances are the caretaker government's term will also be extended. So we could see a lot more of General Asim Munir, less in barracks and more in conference halls. And now it's time for Vantage Charts, images that tell the story. It was a crash and burn for the Burning Man festival in the United States. 72,000 people got stranded after a rainstorm turned the festival into mud, the festival site rather, into mud. Landing once on the moon was not enough for the Chandrayaan-3 lander. The Vikram lander conducted a hop experiment, landing on the moon once again. And move over Jack Sparrow. There's a new pirate in town. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is sporting an eye patch to cover bruises from a fall while jogging. Scholz says he's excited for the memes to come. And finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1998, Google was founded by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. This was while they were PhD students at Stanford University, initially called BackRub. It began as a research project. The duo wanted to create a tool that would deliver relevant search results to readers. 25 years later, Google is the world's largest search engine. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.